Out of 8.2 billion people, you're here watching this alone. Not by accident, not by coincidence, but because something in you has been shifting, quietly, deeply, in ways you can't fully explain yet. Maybe you felt it. That strange distance between who you used to be and who you're becoming. That quiet realization that the life around you doesn't fit the same anymore. And it's confusing, because from the outside, nothing looks different. But inside, everything feels different. You think more. You feel deeper. You question things you once accepted without hesitation. And sometimes, it makes you feel like you don't belong anywhere. Like you're out of sync with the world. But what if that feeling isn't a flaw? What if it's a signal? Because the truth is, out of billions of people living on this planet, very few ever pause long enough to notice their own inner world. Most people stay distracted, busy, moving from one moment to the next without ever asking, why do I feel this way? Why am I here? Is this really the life I want? But you started asking, and that changes everything. There comes a point in life where growth doesn't look exciting anymore. It doesn't feel like motivation. It doesn't feel like progress. It feels like losing interest in things you once loved. It feels like outgrowing people you once needed. It feels like standing in the middle of your life, unsure of what comes next. And that uncertainty can feel heavy. Because nobody really talks about this part. The part where you're no longer your old self. But not fully your new self either. You're in between. And that space can feel lonely. You may have noticed it in small moments. When conversations don't feel meaningful anymore. When noise becomes overwhelming. When you start craving silence, not because you're tired, but because you're searching. Searching for clarity, for truth, for something real. And that search is what separates awareness from autopilot. Because most people don't change until they're forced to. But some people begin changing the moment they become aware. And awareness is powerful. It makes you see patterns you used to ignore. It makes you question habits that once felt normal. It pushes you to face parts of yourself you avoided for years. Not because you're broken, but because you're ready to understand yourself on a deeper level. And that process isn't comfortable. Growth rarely is. It can feel like everything is falling apart, when in reality, things are finally coming into alignment. You start noticing what drains you, what distracts you, what no longer reflects who you're becoming. And slowly, you begin to let go. Not all at once, but piece by piece. Old mindsets, old reactions, old versions of yourself that no longer fit. And that's where the real transformation happens. Not in loud moments, not in dramatic changes, but in quiet decisions. The decision to think differently, to respond differently, to stop betraying yourself just to fit in. Because deep down, you've realized something important. You can't keep living a life that feels wrong just because it's familiar. And that realization changes how you move. You become more intentional, more aware, more honest with yourself. You stop chasing everything and start choosing what actually matters. And yes, it can feel isolating at times, because not everyone around you will understand this shift. Some people will think you've changed. And they're right. You have, but not in the way they assume. You didn't become distant. You became clear. Clear about what you value. Clear about what you need. Clear about what you're no longer willing to tolerate. And clarity often looks like distance to people who are used to the old version of you. But this isn't about them. This is about you finally listening to yourself. For maybe the first time fully. That voice inside you, the one that kept whispering, "This isn't it. There's more than this." You stopped ignoring it. And now you're here. Not lost, just evolving. Not alone, just selective. Not broken, just becoming. Because the truth is, what you're experiencing right now, this awareness, this shift, this quiet transformation, it's not something everyone reaches. Not but because they don't slow down long enough to see it. And you did. Which means there's something rare about your journey. Not in a way that separates you from others, but in a way that connects you more deeply to yourself. And that's where everything begins. So if you've been feeling different lately, if you've been questioning things, if you've been pulling away from what no longer feels right, don't rush to fix it. Don't force yourself back into a version of life you've already. Sit with it. Understand it. Because this phase is not the end of who you are. It's the beginning of who you're becoming. And that takes courage. The kind of courage that isn't loud. The kind that shows up in quiet moments. When you choose growth over comfort. Truth over illusion. Yourself over approval. So take a breath. You're not behind. You're not late. You're not missing anything. You're waking up to your own life in your own time. And that is powerful. If this message resonated with you, if you felt even a small part of your story in these words, then this isn't where it ends. Take a moment, reflect on where you are right now. What you're stepping into. And if you're ready to keep exploring that path, make sure you stay connected to this space. Like the video. Share your thoughts in the comments, I read them. And subscribe to Last Call for the Chosen for more conversations like this. The kind that meet you where you are and help you move forward with clarity. Because your journey matters. And the more you understand yourself, the more everything else begins to make sense. And maybe the part no one prepared you for is how quiet this transformation really is. There's no announcement, no clear milestone where everything suddenly makes sense. It's subtle. It shows up in the way you pause before reacting, in the way you start protecting your energy without explaining yourself, in the way you choose peace even when chaos feels familiar. And at first, you might doubt it. You might wonder, am I overthinking this? Am I drifting too far from everyone else? But deep down, there's a calm knowing. Something inside you feels more real than it ever has before. And that's new. Because for a long time, maybe you were living on autopilot, doing what was expected, following patterns you didn't question, staying in spaces that felt comfortable but not meaningful. Until one day, something shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough to make you see differently. And once you see, you can't unsee. You start recognizing the difference between distraction and purpose, between noise and truth, between connection and attachment. And that awareness, it changes how you experience everything, even your own thoughts. You begin to notice how often your mind tries to pull you back to old fears, old habits, old versions of yourself that feel safe but small. And this is where your strength is tested. Not in big moments, but in the quiet daily choices. The choice to not go back. The choice to keep growing, even when it's uncomfortable. The choice to trust that who you're becoming is worth the uncertainty. Because growth asks something from you. It asks you to let go without always knowing what's coming next. It asks you to stand alone sometimes without feeling lonely. It asks you to believe in your own path, even when it doesn't make sense to anyone else. And that's not easy. But it's real. And the more you lean into it, the more you start to feel something unexpected. Peace. Not the loud kind. Not the kind that depends on everything going your way. But a quiet, steady peace. The kind that comes from knowing you're no longer betraying yourself. You're no longer forcing connections that drain you. You're no longer chasing validation that never truly satisfied you. You're no longer ignoring that inner voice that kept asking for more. You listened, and that changes your relationship with yourself. You become someone you can rely on. Someone who doesn't abandon their own growth just to stay comfortable. And that is rare. Not because others can't reach it, but because many people never choose it. They stay where it's familiar. They silence their inner questions. They avoid the discomfort of change. But you didn't. You leaned into it, even when it was confusing, even when it felt isolating, even when you didn't have all the answers. And that says something about you. It means you're building something real. Not something that looks good from the outside, but something that feels right on the inside. And over time, that becomes your foundation. A life built on awareness, on intention, on truth, not perfection. You'll still have moments of doubt. Moments where you question everything again. Moments where the old version of you tries to pull you back. That's part of the process. But now you'll notice it. And noticing gives you power. Because you're no longer reacting unconsciously. You're choosing who you want to be, moment by moment. And that's where real change lives. Not in one big decision, but in 1,000 small ones. So if you're still here, still listening, take this as a reminder. You're not just going through something. You're growing through something. Every thought you question, every habit you outgrow, every moment you choose awareness over comfort. It's shaping you. Slowly, quietly, powerfully. And one day, you'll look back at this version of yourself. The one who felt uncertain. The one who felt different. The one who felt like they were in between worlds. And you'll realize, this was the moment everything started to change. Not because something outside of you happened, but because you finally turned inward. And you stayed there long enough to understand yourself. So keep going. Even if it's slow. Even if it's messy. Even if no one else fully understands it. This path is yours. And the more you walk it, the more it will reveal who you truly are. If this message is still speaking to you, don't ignore that feeling. Write down what's been on your mind lately. Reflect on what you've been outgrowing. Be honest about what you truly want moving forward. And if you're ready to keep evolving, stay connected here. Because this space isn't about telling you who you are. It's about helping you discover it for yourself. Subscribe to Last Call for the Chosen if you haven't already. Drop a comment with one thing you've recently realized about yourself, something real. And most importantly, don't rush your transformation. You're not meant to become someone else overnight. You're meant to uncover who you've been all along, and as you keep moving forward, there's another layer to this that begins to reveal itself. It's not just about what you're leaving behind. It's about what you're learning to carry differently. Because growth isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming aware. Aware of your patterns. Aware of your reactions. Aware of the story you've been telling yourself for years. Stories like, I have to be accepted to feel worthy. I can't change because it will make others uncomfortable. I should stay the same because it's safer. But now, those stories don't sit the same anymore. You start questioning them. And in that questioning, you create space. Space to rewrite. Space to choose again. Space to become someone more aligned with who you truly are, not who you were conditioned to be. And that's where things begin to feel different in a deeper way. You stop needing constant noise. You stop chasing every opportunity. You stop saying yes to things that drain you just to avoid feeling left out. Instead, you slow down. Not because you've lost direction, but because you've found intention. You start asking yourself better questions. Does this actually matter to me? Is this aligned with the life I'm trying to build? Am I doing this out of fear or out of growth? And those questions, they guide you. Not perfectly, not instantly, but consistently. And over time, consistency creates clarity. You begin to trust your decisions more. You begin to rely less on outside validation. You begin to feel comfortable standing in your own space without needing to constantly explain yourself. That's a different kind of strength. A quiet strength. The kind that doesn't need attention. The kind that doesn't need approval. The kind that simply knows. And once you experience that, even for a moment, you realize something important. You were never actually lost. You were just disconnected from yourself. And now you're reconnecting. Piece by piece. Through your thoughts. Through your choices. Through your willingness to sit with discomfort instead of escaping it. Because escaping is easy. Distractions are everywhere. Temporary comfort is always available. But understanding yourself, that takes presence. That takes honesty. That takes the willingness to face parts of your life that you once avoided. And the fact that you're doing that, even slowly, even imperfectly, means you're already further than you think. Because most people wait for a perfect moment to change. But you started in the middle of confusion. You started without all the answers. You started while still feeling uncertain. And that's what makes this real. This isn't a performance. This isn't something you're doing for anyone else. This is internal. This is personal. This is yours. And the more you respect that process, the more it begins to reshape everything around you. Your environment, your relationships, your priorities. Not all at once, but gradually, naturally, without force. Because when you change internally, your external world starts to reflect it. You begin attracting different conversations, different energies, different opportunities that align more with who you're becoming. And at the same time, you naturally release what no longer fits. Not with anger, not with resistance, but with understanding. You realize some things were meant for a version of you that no longer exists. And that's okay. You don't have to carry everything forward. You don't have to keep proving yourself in spaces that don't see you. You don't have to hold onto identities that feel heavy. You're allowed to evolve. You're allowed to change your mind, your direction, your priorities, and the people who truly understand growth will understand you. And those who do, that's not your responsibility to fix. Because this journey was never about becoming understood by everyone. It was about understanding yourself. Deeply, honestly, without filters. So as you move forward from here, remember this. You don't need to rush into a final version of yourself. There is no final version. There's only continuous growth, continuous awareness, continuous becoming. Some days will feel clear. Some days will feel uncertain. Some days you'll feel strong. Some days you'll question everything again. That doesn't mean you're going backwards. It means you're human. And growth isn't a straight line. It's a process of returning to yourself over and over again with more awareness each time. So be patient with yourself. Give yourself the same understanding you've been learning to give others. And most importantly, don't disconnect from this version of you. The one who's trying. The one who's questioning. The one who's becoming more aware every single day. Because this version of you is the foundation for everything that comes next. If you've stayed all the way until this moment, then you already know. This wasn't just another video. This was a mirror, a reminder, a quiet confirmation that you're not alone in what you're experiencing. So don't let this feeling fade the moment you leave. Carry it with you. Reflect on it. Act on it even in small ways. And if you want to keep walking this path, stay connected to this space. Subscribe to Last Call for the Chosen. Share this with someone who might need it, even if they don't realize it yet. And leave a comment with one word that describes where you are in your journey right now. Not where you think you should be, but where you honestly are. Because awareness starts there. And from there, everything begins to change. And after everything you've felt, everything you've started to understand, there's one more truth that quietly begins to settle in. This journey isn't about becoming someone extraordinary in the eyes of the world. It's about becoming real in your own eyes. Because for so long, maybe you measured your life by external things. Progress meant approval. Success meant recognition. Happiness meant fitting into a version of life that looked right from the outside. But now, that definition is shifting. You're starting to realize that a life can look perfect and still feel empty. And it can look simple and feel deeply fulfilling. And that realization changes how you move. You stop performing. You stop pretending. You stop shrinking yourself just to be accepted in spaces that were never meant for your growth. Instead, you start showing up honestly. Not loudly. Not perfectly. But truthfully. And at first, that can feel uncomfortable. Because honesty removes the masks. It exposes what you've been avoiding. It brings clarity to what you've been tolerating. It forces you to face decisions you've been delaying. But it also does something powerful. It frees you. Because when you stop pretending, you stop carrying the weight of being someone you're not. And that weight was heavier than you realized. So now things feel lighter. Not easier, but clearer. You know what drains you. You know what matters. You know what you need to protect, even if no one else understands why. And that clarity becomes your guide. Not every step will feel certain. There will still be moments where you hesitate. Moments where you question if you're doing the right thing. Moments where the familiar pulls you back with comfort. But hear the difference now. You'll notice it. You'll catch yourself before you fall back into old patterns. You'll pause before making decisions that go against your growth. You'll feel that quiet resistance inside you, reminding you of who you're becoming. And that awareness is everything. Because once you're aware, you have a choice. A choice to repeat the past, or to move forward with intention. A choice to stay comfortable, or to keep evolving. And no one else can make that choice for you. That's what makes this path personal. There's no map, no clear timeline, no guarantee of how everything will unfold. But there is something even more important than certainty. There's alignment. That feeling when your actions match your values. when your choices reflect your growth, when your life begins to feel like it actually belongs to you. And that feeling is worth everything. So if you've been waiting for a sign, for clarity, for confirmation that you're on the right path, this is it. Not as a promise of where you'll end up, but as a reminder of what you're already doing. You're paying attention. You're questioning. You're growing. And that's enough. More than enough. Because real transformation doesn't happen all at once. It happens in moments like this. Moments where something clicks, where something shifts, where you begin to see yourself and your life just a little differently than before. And those small shifts, they add up. They shape your future. They redefine your direction. They quietly build a life that feels more aligned, more intentional, more real. So don't underestimate where you are right now. Even if it doesn't look like progress from the outside. Even if it feels slow. Even if no one else notices it. This matters. You matter. Your awareness, your effort, your willingness to grow. It all matters. And the more you honor that, the stronger it becomes. So from this moment forward, walk with intention, speak with honesty, choose with awareness, and trust yourself even when the path isn't fully clear. Because you don't need to have everything figured out to keep moving forward. You just need to stay connected to the part of you that knows there's more. Not more in a distant, unreachable way, but more in a grounded, real, evolving way. More understanding, more clarity, more alignment with the life that actually feels right for you. And that kind of more is something not everyone chooses to pursue. But you did, and you still are. So keep going. Quietly, consistently, honestly, because this isn't just a phase. It's a turning point. And years from now, when you look back, you won't remember every detail, but you'll remember this feeling. The moment you stopped ignoring yourself and started listening. If this message stayed with you until the end, then you already know what to do. Don't scroll away and forget it. Pause. Take a deep breath. Think about one thing in your life right now that no longer feels aligned. And be honest with yourself about it. That's where your next step begins. And if you're ready to keep building that awareness, stay connected. Subscribe to Last Call for the Chosen. Like the video so it reaches someone else who might need it. And in the comments, write one truth you've been avoiding, but now you're ready to face. No pressure. No perfection. Just honesty. Because this journey, it's not about becoming someone else. It's about finally becoming yourself. And even after all of this, there's a quieter realization that begins to settle in. You don't need to announce your growth for it to be real. Not everything needs to be shared. Not everything needs validation. Not everything needs to be understood by others. Some of the most important changes in your life will happen in silence, in the way you think, in the way you respond, in the way you choose yourself when no one is watching. And that kind of growth is powerful because it's not driven by attention. It's not shaped by opinions. It's not dependent on approval. It's built on something deeper. Self-respect. The kind that doesn't come from perfection, but from consistency. From showing up for yourself again and again. Even on the days you don't feel strong. Even on the days you doubt everything. Because those days matter too. In fact, they might matter the most. They're the days where you decide whether you go back to what's easy or continue toward what's real. And you won't always get it right. There will be moments where you fall back into old habits, moments where you lose clarity, moments where you question if any of this is even working. That's part of the process. Growth isn't about never slipping. It's about recognizing when you do and choosing to return to yourself faster each time. Without judgment, without harshness, just awareness and adjustment. Because the goal was never to become flawless. The goal is to become conscious, to understand yourself well enough that even when you drift, you know how to come back. And that's a skill, a powerful one that most people never develop because they're too busy avoiding themselves. But you're not avoiding anymore. You're facing things. You're sitting with your thoughts. You're questioning your patterns. You're slowly building a relationship with yourself that's honest, not performative. And that changes everything. Because once you have that, you don't feel the need to chase every external thing for fulfillment. You stop expecting others to complete you. You stop relying on constant distractions to feel okay. You start becoming enough for yourself. And that doesn't mean you won't want connection. It doesn't mean you'll isolate yourself from the world. It just means your foundation is internal now. Stable, grounded, not easily shaken by every opinion, every situation, every moment of uncertainty. And from that place, you move differently. You choose differently. You live differently. Because you're no longer reacting to life. You're responding to it. With awareness. With intention. With a sense of direction that comes from within, not from outside pressure. And over time, that creates a life that feels aligned. Not perfect, but real. A life where your decisions reflect who you are, not who you felt pressured to be. A life where your peace isn't constantly interrupted, because you've learned what deserves your energy and what doesn't. A life where you can sit with yourself in silence and not feel the need to escape it. And that is something not everyone experiences. Not because it's impossible, but because it requires something many people avoid. Honesty, the kind of honesty that asks, what am I pretending not to see? What am I holding onto that I've already? Who am I when I'm not trying to impress anyone? And those questions, they don't always have easy answers, but they lead you somewhere real, somewhere grounded, somewhere that feels like truth, even if it's uncomfortable at first. And that's where you are now. Not at the end, not at the beginning, but in the middle of becoming. And the middle is where most people give up. Because it's unclear. Because it's slow. Because it doesn't always feel rewarding. But this is where the depth is built. This is where the real change happens. Not when everything is obvious, but when you choose to keep going without needing constant confirmation. So if you've made it this far, if you've stayed with this message, if something inside you has been quietly saying, this feels true, then don't ignore that. That feeling is your awareness speaking, and it's been there for a long time. You're just finally listening. So honor it, protect it, build on it, even in small ways. Because small steps, taken consistently, create real transformation. Not overnight, but over time. And one day, without even realizing when it happened, you'll notice something different. You'll notice how calm you've become, how clear you think, how certain you feel about things that once confused you. And you'll realize you didn't suddenly become someone new. You just stopped running from who you were meant to be. So keep going. Not perfectly, not quickly, but honestly, because honesty is what will guide you further than anything else. And if this message found you at the right moment, don't let it just pass by. Carry something from it. One thought, one realization, one small change you're ready to make. That's enough. And if you're ready to keep deepening that awareness, to keep exploring this path of understanding yourself, then stay here. Subscribe to Last Call for the Chosen. Be part of this space where growth is real, not rushed. And in the comments, share what resonated with you the most. Not what sounds good, but what felt real. Because that's where your journey continues. Right there in the truth you're willing to face. And before you leave, don't just let this be another video you watched. Another moment that felt deep and then faded. Pause right now. Because this is where most people lose it. They feel something powerful. They resonate. They nod their head. And then they go right back to living the same way. Not because they don't care, but because they don't act. And if you've made it this far, you're not here to just feel this message. You're here to do something with it. So here's what I want you to do. Not tomorrow. Not later. Right now. Close your eyes for a second and ask yourself one honest question. What in my life no longer feels right, but I keep holding on to anyway? Don't overthink it. The answer is already there. Now listen carefully. That thing, that feeling, that truth, that's your starting point. That's where your next level of growth begins. And you have two choices. You can ignore it, push it down, go back to comfort, or you can face it. You can take one small step toward change, one honest decision, one action that aligns with the person you're becoming. Because this isn't about doing everything at once. It's about proving to yourself that you're serious about your own growth, that you're not just watching transformation, you're living it. And that decision, it separates people who stay stuck from people who actually evolve. So don't scroll away. Don't break this moment. Lock it in. Right now, go to the comments and write one word. Just one. The word that describes what you know you need to face. No explanations. No overthinking. Just one word. That's your commitment. That's your line in the sand. And if you're really ready to take this seriously, then don't stop there. Subscribe to Last Call for the Chosen. Because this isn't just a channel. This is a space where you come back to yourself, where you stop running, where you start understanding, where you build something real within. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next message that might be exactly what you need at the exact moment you need it. And if this hit you, truly hit you, share it. Not with everyone, but with that one person you know is going through something they don't talk about. Because sometimes, one message, at the right time, can change the direction of someone's entire life. And finally, remember this. You didn't come this far just to stay the same. Something in you is ready. Not later. Not someday. Now. So take that step. Even if it's small. Even if it's uncomfortable. Even if no one else sees it. Because you will. And that's what matters. This is your moment. Don't waste it.